So the comparison of the West African French to like France. I mean, even in France, they have the Southern, French and like the Paris French, um, but they definitely be like, oh, you have an African accent, you know. I'm like, well, I never learned like French, so like to me that's French. So like I've talked with people from France after my mission, and they're like, yeah, you have an African accent. So, dang it, because everyone wants that French accent, but it's just how it is. The French is just so different. Just the phrases and everything is just phrasing is just weird. And even for within Africa, like in West Africa, it's different as opposed to those who live in Ivory Coast or Cote d'Ivoire or in the Congo. Like they all just kind of have different phrasing and stuff. For instance, I had a lot of companions from Cote d'Ivoire who would kind of say "on dit quoi," like when you kind of see someone, you say "on dit quoi," and what kind of literally means like one says what. So if you really think about it, like that makes no sense. But it's kind of like their way of like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on? One thing that they'll always say is "bon arrivé," which means like good welcome. Which when French people would come here, like you had French companions, that'd be like that makes no sense. Like bon arrivé, like, but instead like it's bienvenue, like welcome. So like that just doesn't exist in France. Like if you were to go up in France and say like bon arrivé, like welcome, they're just like, what the heck are you saying? So I just remember, I'm learning French. I'm doing my best, and I was working up to start to talk to people, and my companion, my trainer, was like, "Hey, like you're gonna talk to this person like at this door," and I was like, "I don't really want to. Like I'm not ready." And then he's like, "No, you're gonna do it." I never once worked with an American. All of them were African and one French. So my trainer was from the Congo, and he was he spoke French, didn't speak English. I didn't speak French, spoke English. So we like kind of met in the middle at one point. He wanted to learn English, so it was just a weird connection of like he knew what I was trying to say, like, and like I could kind of understand what he was saying, but no one else could understand me, like only him. So in lessons I'd be like trying to say something, and then they're just like, hey, we don't know what you're saying, and then like he would like translate for me, and like, oh, okay. But I remember when I was in the beginning of French, like this is a really weird accent. As I was talking to this person, I was like, est-ce que vous avez vu les missionnaires comme nous avons? Which means like, have you seen missionaries like us before? Like kind of be like, yes. It's like, oh, well, and then introduce ourselves. And so like, what I said is like, est-ce que vous avez vu? Like, have you seen? And then like after, my companion's like, wow, I was really surprised he understood you. I was like, why? Like, what'd I say wrong? Like, correct me. Like, help me out. He's like, it's not j'ai vu, like it's j'ai vu. So they pronounce the u like e. So I was like, I'm pretty sure that's not right. But sometimes you would have to talk like that for people to understand you. So I felt pretty comfortable in learning the actual French because I had my French workbook, and I would work out of it and got pretty good at writing because I'd copy the question, write the answer, and actual French, and then the African French. There's just some vocabulary that if you tried to use with them, they wouldn't understand you. So you really had to take it down a level sometimes. Sometimes the vocabulary was kind of too extensive. And I don't know, you just get good at knowing what the general knowledge of people is. Some people that Africans, they're just like boom boom, and you just have the really good accent, and then you just throw in like words at you that you've studied that you've never really used before because you don't use it on the daily, but you're just like, oh, like this guy's like really good, and then for the most part they're like, yeah, I've been to France and stuff. So you're like, oh cool. So then you just talk to them. However, met a lot of people that didn't speak French at all, even more that couldn't read in French. I spent lots of time actually teaching people how to read in French. and which is kind of weird because like I learned this in a year and stuff. Like, yeah, given like I've had this education background of English, kind of basis, but taught a lot of people how to read in French. Spent a lot of time, reading the Book of Mormon with people, and because you go there like, hey, did you read? Like, no. I'm like, well, why didn't you read? I'm like, oh, I'll read next time. You go next time. You're like, did you read? No. It's like, okay, like we're reading together right now. And then when you're reading together, you realize that they're not really that great of a reader. So you're like, okay, like when you spend a little bit more time like reading with them and explaining kind of what's going on, because they're not gonna be able to just pick it up and just read it.